I'm going to show you how to make some scented cookie charms, and the first one's going to be a chocolate chip cookie. And to make the chocolate chips, I rolled out a piece of brown clay, and then I baked it, and then I cut up the piece of clay into strips, and then I cut those strips into little chunks. And you can use a blade or scissors, but scissors are a lot easier to cut up the little chips. And now I'm mixing in the chips with some tan clay that I already added some cookie scent to. And this is what it looks like once I mixed them in. And now I'm just going to add some texture with some sandpaper that's really rough. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of the chips to the top of the cookie so it looks really chocolatey. And to make the cookie look like it's been baked, I'm just going to add some yellow and sienna brownish reddish colored chalk to the cookie. And you want to keep the darker color on the edges and the bottom and the lighter color towards the center of the cookie. Then I added a little bit more of the cookie fragrance to the bottom of the cookie once I added the chalk. And after that, I added an eye pin. To make the Oreo cookie, I mixed brown and black polymer clay together, and I also mixed in some of the soft cookie fragrance with the clay, and then I added a little piece of the clay into an Oreo cookie mold. And now I'm just going to add a piece of white clay in between the two cookies. That's going to be like the cream filling. And I'm also adding a head pin and some TLS so that the cookies will stick together once they've been baked. And now I'm just finishing off the eye pin. And the next cookie I made was a sugar cookie with frosting and sprinkles. And I'm scenting that cookie dough as well. And after I scented it, I rolled it out very thin, and then I cut out a little heart shape, and then added some texture with a piece of sandpaper, and then added some color with some chalk. And I colored the bottom of the cookie darker than the top. Then once you add an eye pin, you can make the frosting by mixing some pink clay with Fimo Deco Gel. And I also added some strawberry scent to the frosting. And this is what it looks like once it's all mixed up. And now I'm just going to use a needle tool to spread the frosting on the cookie. And now I'm just adding sprinkles to the cookie. And after I baked the cookie, I added even more strawberry scent to the frosting of the cookie. To make the Linzer cookie, I mixed white with translucent and tan clay. Then I added some soft cookie fragrance to the clay and mixed it in. Then I rolled it out and cut out two hearts, and one heart I cut out a smaller heart in the center. Then I added some chalk for color. Now I'm flipping the cookie, one of the cookies over so that I can put jam on it. And to make the jam, I mixed Fimo Deco Gel with red acrylic paint, and of course I'm adding more strawberry scent to it. And now I'm just going to add the jam to the center of the cookie. And to the top cookie, I'm going to add a little bit of TLS and then use my finger to spread it around. And then I'm going to add baby powder on top to look like powdered sugar. And then I'm going to add that cookie on top of the one that I put jam on. And to make the next biscuit cookie, I use the same scented dough, and I cut it into a rectangle, and then I used a needle tool to add texture to the edges and little dots in the center. And now I'm just going to use chalk to color the edges of both cookies. And I'm going to use white polymer clay to make the cream filling. And now I'm just going to add a little head pin and press it in. And then I'm going to add TLS to keep the head pin in place. To make the M&M cookie, I use the same light tan dough that's already scented with the cookie fragrance, and then I used sandpaper to texture the top of it and chalk to make it look like it's been baked, and I added it to the bottom as well. Then I added little wells to put the M&Ms in, and I also added an eye pin. And to make the bear cookie, I used the same scented cookie dough, and I cut out the shape of his head using a needle tool. And once I cut out his head, I used a piece of sandpaper to add texture and chalk to add color. Then I scented the cream filling and used a number 14 star tip to push out some whipped cream to add to the edges so it would kind of peek out of the cookie. Then I added a head pin and some TLS to kind of glue them all together once they've been baked. I used dark brown clay to add a nose and eyes. To make the frosted animal cookies, I scented some white clay with a cookie fragrance, and then I cut out a little polar bear shape with a needle tool. And once I smoothed the edges, I added an eye pin. And I scented some hot pink clay with strawberry fragrance, and then I cut out an elephant and then smoothed the edges and added an eye pin as well. Then I added TLS to the top of both cookies, and then I just added little sprinkles, and I used the TLS to keep the sprinkles in place. And once I baked all the cookies, I used glossy glaze to make parts of the cookies shiny, and I like this glaze because it doesn't get sticky, it's really smooth. And then once I did that, I just let it dry, and this is what the finished cookies look like. So have fun and make your own.